right, everybody, welcome to Plow and Potato. And I say all right because you've been wondering, where is the Christmas episode proper?
It's been all Advent.
We've seen Advent. We've seen Messiah. Not the Messiah, but, Handel's Messiah. But where is the Christmas proper episode? It's here. It's right here. If you've been looking, you found it. Your search and trek through the wilderness is over. I'm your host, Sean Bonnet.
I'm Joffre Swait.
Of course. And this very scholarly gentleman.
Oh, wow. That's so much pressure.
Scholarly.
The handsome bearded fellow sitting to my left is Pastor.
This is Ben Zornes, guy.
He is the.
Howdy.
Got a little dance for us. He is the executive minister at Christ Church here in Moscow, Idaho. He's also a musical artist. Has written a few really nice Christian albums, and he is the author.
That's right.
But not the author. Just what does that mean? But the author of an Advent Christmas devotional.
That's right.
He rules the world.
There it is.
We've got it right here in the flesh. So this show, we're going to dive...
Incarnate, right? I've incarnated my ideas.
So this is Word made flesh, is what you're saying.
That's right.
Not just
That's
I can't handle these days. They're brilliant.
That's right.
Before we dive into a sweet C.S. Lewis poem we have and talking more about Ben's book, we've got an excellent ad from Kepler Education for you to check out.
Kepler is not a traditional online school. It is a consortium of independent online educators unified by a common vision to bring a Christian and classical education to junior high and high school students.
Ben thought the ad was excellent. He was skeptical, but he's all sold out.
That's right.
All right, so it's just about Christmas.
That's right. My kids informed me 8 days.
Yeah, there's the countdown.
Do you guys have like a digital clock going?
No, they keep track all up here. They know it.
See, my kids are getting
8 days,
old
7
and jaded.
hours.
They're at least able to keep the excitement to themselves.
Yeah.
All but maybe the 7-year-old.
We were setting up our Christmas tree a couple weeks back, and my 4-year-old son says, "Christmas really is the most wonderful time of the year."
He was probably vibrating while he said it,
Yeah. It was great.
The way he delivered it sounds like he did it aggressively. Like,
No, he did.
Christmas is like...
No, he was very excited for it.
With
Yep.
smile.
Yep.
Well, Christmas is the very best time of year. I mean, I know that as faithful Christians, we're supposed to love Easter just as much. And you know what? In our family culture, we have made a concerted effort to make Easter a huge deal. Nice. Like the presents flow, all of that. Right. But there's something about Christmas, man, that all those associations, which I know we're going to get into. Right. But okay, Christmas, cosmic significance, the king of the cosmos come to earth.
Right.
Let's read a poem about that.
Let's do it.
All right, so C.S. Lewis, The Turn of the Tide. Breathless was the air over Bethlehem. Black and bare were the fields, hard as granite the clods. Hedges stiff with ice, the sedge and the vice of the pool like pointed iron rods. And the deathly stillness spread from Bethlehem. It was shed wider each moment on the land. Through rampart and wall, into camp and into hall, stole the hush. All tongues were at a stand. At the procurator's feast, the jocular freedman ceased his story and gaped. All were glum. Travelers at their beer in a tavern turned to hear the landlord. Their oracle was dumb. But the silence flowed forth to the islands and the north and smoothed the unquiet river bars and leveled out the waves from their reveling and paved the sea with cold reflected stars. Where the Caesar on Palatine sat at ease to sign, without anger, signatures of death, there stole into his room and on his soul a gloom, and his pen faltered, and his breath. Then to Carthage and the Gauls, past Parthia and the falls of Nile, and Mount Amara it crept. The romp and war of beast and swamp and jungle ceased, the forest grew still, as though it slept. So it ran about the girth of the planet. From the earth a signal, a warning went out, and away behind the air her neighbors were aware of change. They were troubled with a doubt. Salamanders in the sun that brandish as they run, tails like the Americas in size, were stunned by it and dazed, wondering they gazed up at earth, misgiving in their eyes. In houses and signs, Ousiarchs divine grew pale and questioned what it meant. Great galactic lords stood back to back with swords half drawn, awaiting the event, and a whisper among them passed, "Is this perhaps the last of our story and the glories of our crown? The entropy worked out, the central redoubt abandoned, the world spring running down?" Then they could speak no more. Weakness overbore even them. They were as flies in a web, in their lethargy stone dumb. The death had almost come. The tide lay motionless at ebb. Like a stab at that moment, over crab and bowman, over maiden and lion came the shock of returning life, the start and burning pang at heart, setting galaxies to tingle and rock. And the lords dared to breathe, and swords were sheathed, and a rustling, a relaxing began. With a rumor and noise of the resuming of joys on the nerves of the universe it ran. Then pulsing into space with delicate, dulcet pace came a music, infinitely small and clear, but it swelled and drew nearer and held all world in the sharpness of its call. And now divinely deep and louder with the sweep and quiver of inebriating sound, the vibrant dithyrambs shook Libra and the ram, the brains of Aquarius spun round. Such a note as neither throne nor potentate had known since the word first founded the abyss. But this time it was changed in a mystery, estranged, a paradox, an ambiguous bliss. Heaven danced to it and burned. Such answer was returned to the hush, the favette, the fear that earth had sent out. Revel, mirth, and shout descended to her sphere below sphere. Saturn laughed and lost his latter age's frost. His beard Niagara-like unfroze. Monsters in the sun rejoiced. The inconstant one, the unwedded moon, forgot her woes. A shiver of rebirth and deliverance on the earth went gliding. Her bonds were released. Into broken light a breeze rippled and woke the seas. In the forest it startled every beast. Capropods fell to dance from Taproband to France, leprechauns from down to Labrador. In his green Asian dell the phoenix from his shell burst forth and was a phoenix once more. So death lay in a rest, but at Bethlehem the blessed nothing greater could be heard than a dry wind in the thorn, the cry of the one newborn, and cattle in stall as they stirred.
That's great.
Dude!
That's a great one.
That's another adrenaline pumping poem as one reads it out loud.
That's great.
Faster, faster, faster.
So the entire cosmos is
Sat
affected.
up straight. Yeah,
yes,
sat up straight and looked in
exactly.
to see what this event was at Bethlehem. Yeah.
So I think that's a good opportunity to talk about why you called the book what you called it.
Well, I mean, one, it comes from my favorite Christmas carol, Joy to the World. That final verse that whenever you get to it in church is just sort of the congregation sings a little louder, sings with a little bit more vigor and verve, and that he rules the world with truth and grace and makes the nations prove. Because this is a moment when the whole earth sits up and takes notice that the promised one, the deliverer, the one who would beat the dragon, had arrived, had taken center stage.
Dun 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 dun.
That's right. It's the that's right.
Sorry, dude. That's the excitement chord I know.
That's right.
the significance chord. All
That's
right.
right.
What's a good significant music?
Oh man, I would think
Put
something
you
like
on the
by
spot.
Mahler.
You can hit it, like hum it out.
Da 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 dun, da 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 dun.
Okay.
Da 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 dun dun. I would go somewhere like that.
You should have done that. You left me to
I
fill the musical
I wasn't
gap.
trying to fill Ben with little sound effects like shotgun blast. That's right.
I love how Ben's head was bouncing back and forth during all that. It's like,
It was like, what's gonna happen now? No, I mean Beethoven 5 is fine. Go ahead, Ben. You were saying something really nice.
Well, I mean, it's the event of events. From the fall onward, you have mankind in bondage, in darkness, in exile, and when you read Genesis, you see, maybe Noah will save us, and sure enough, not,
right.
and maybe Abraham, and sure enough, not, and this. Then you get along to David and Solomon. You think maybe these high watermarks of God's redemptive purposes, and nope. And then 400 years of silence, and finally, in the most humble dwellings, and at a moment unexpected, at the turning of the tides, the rightful king comes out of exile, as it were. The Aragorn comes out of exile to take the rightful throne.
there's at least one Lord of the Rings quote in here.
I think there's one, maybe four. There's some Narnia quotes in there.
He just pulled all of Narnia.
In fact, don't even buy my book. Read
Narnia,
the Chronicles of
I feel
Narnia.
like anytime Ben gets up to preach, or even just is giving a rundown of a business meeting, there's always a Narnia.
There's a Narnia reference. That's right. That's right.
If he's just trying to give you a welcome, he's always slipping it in there.
That's right. Can't get away from it. That's right.
So that's our C.S. Lewis poem. I just want to make a quick note. As someone who's learning more about poetry, I love when you have this story being driven out by the words. Like I was seeing the movie play as you were reading, and I don't think all poems are like that where they're in narrative, but I really like the ones where you get to just track along in these vignettes.
Yeah.
And so we're in the tavern, we're in the heavens, we're on the earth. Even
the salamanders in the sun.
That's the image that gets me.
As the Americas is great. That's a great line.
And Ben, sort of as a really wordsy guy, even throughout the you say like the earth perks up, it sits up,
right?
Like just that idea of the earth having that body to tune its head, to turn and give all of its creational gusto focus. It's like it's stirring. So your book, He Rules the World. We have a little bit of insight into why you titled it the way you did.
That's right.
A very dear Christmas hymn.
Yeah.
But
I'd point. Let me tag on that. It's Christmas is unapologetic that Christ has come to claim this world. That the God who made heaven and earth was making was planting a flag saying this belongs to me.
Yeah. It's a king thing.
It's
very militant.
And that's
holiday.
It is. What's fascinating, I had somebody tell me a story once that they were in like Dubai or some Middle Eastern country around Christmas time. And in one of these super malls that are in these Middle Eastern countries.
Yeah, I know. That is kind of fascinating.
He's walking around and he's like, I know that song. And it's Joy to the World is playing in this Muslim country.
Oh,
and here's this moment of they've got the tinsel, they've got the Christmas has taken over. Takes over the whole world.
Yeah, there's the flag right
there. This month. And here we are humming songs all across the world in pagan nations that Christ rules the world. Yeah, and even unwitting, they don't know. You've got factories in China churning out nativity scenes going, I wonder what this is about.
We just have to follow up on that now.
Right. And it's ripe for evangelism to say,
hey, do you know
who the King of the world is?
Oh, my goodness. We discussed Handel's Messiah last week, and we took that same point, is this Handel's Messiah is just something that is so prevalent across the United States and in Europe. It's the thing that you do around Christmas time, and non-believers love it. Right. Non-believers love the Christmas tunes. You take like a famous band like Pentatonics, they're pretty known for their Christmas album, and they're taking all of these deep theological truths and just singing it as you have half of them just living in very abhorrent sin in their life, and you're just like, you're singing about submitting to the King.
And because Christmas is a distinctly musical holiday, because the stars sing.
That's a great.
The stars are singing.
Yeah.
The stars came. The angelic host, the heavenly host, come to Bethlehem to announce the shepherds in this poetic declaration. Glory to God in the highest, and on earth peace, goodwill to men on whom his favor rests.
So I'm not going to let you just say something like that without asking, hey, aren't stars just giant balls of gas, Ben?
Oh, Ben,
that's a perfect lead-in. That's a perfect lead-in. You don't believe in science. That's a perfect lead-in to another Narnia quote.
Yeah.
No, but we oftentimes think of stars as just the flaming balls, Pumbaa in The Lion King, right? It's just a flaming ball of gas up there. And that's not all it is. It's why are there signs, clear orderings of these constellations up in the heavens? Why are there pictures in the sky?
Oh, gosh.
It's the music of the spheres, baby.
Dang it, Ben. We forget about that, don't we?
Yeah. And so... and they have this orderly dance, and they astronomers have even turned their telescope sensitive equipment to listen. And when you piece it all together, they're humming. The stars are literally humming.
These great galactic lords are humming.
That's right. And the salamanders in the sun, are taking note.
Yeah. I love that. I love that this universe spoken into being is a living universe. And I love also, and I love it, but I can't handle it. That we have the music of the spheres. We have these salamanders in the sun, and yet we are God's plan.
Right.
I just can't. I can't deal with that. Ben, help me.
Why not the stars? Why the image of man?
Yeah, exactly. Like, we are made in the image of God.
Right.
And then God came to earth.
Right. And he leaves us humbled in the sight of all the great creations he's made. He calls us the image of God. He made us in his own image. In vain, this firstborn seraph tries to sound the depths of love.
Oh,
divine.
no, I love that. I love that line so much. I love that line.
Wait a second. Is this becoming a show about music?
That's right.
And here we go.
Yeah, you did say that Christmas is
It's a distinct,
the quintessentially musical holiday.
Yeah, and all of this brings, I think, to a great encouragement that many people face is the holiday blues, especially Christmas afternoon, or around the 26th of the morning of the 26th,
or Christmas during COVID.
Oh God.
Right, of like we can't. Can't see my family.
That's right. We can't embrace them. We can't go out to the lights. We can't just go be free, have a meal out on the town, or go get some warm drinks at a Christmas festival. What this whole discussion points to why we have Merry Christmases. Right. We just illustrated how glorious it is to be a man or a woman. To be human is a wonderful thing compared to like all the glorious things that God has made, all of the glorious creatures that are living among us. The fact that the Lord has made singing holidays, has made us singing people, the wonder of music, just everything that revolves around us is like wonder. And then Christmas draws us in and says, focus on that. Yeah. Back to the King Jesus coming, setting us free from our captivity. When you meditate on those things, that's where a Merry Christmas comes from, and that's where it's going to stay there if those things are in your mind. Right. So that's glorious. Your book, He Rules the World. What inspired you to write this book?
Yeah. My parents, I don't know where they found it. They found a Christmas devotional that we would do every year without fail. And they made like a felt...
All growing up.
A felt Christmas tree with like little felt ornaments. And that each night, it would sort of tie in with that day's little devotional. And then we would hide them and just have a month long basically of these meditations and reflections, and sing a few verses of A Christmas Carol, to the point where after 10 or 15 years of that, like we had them memorized. We had these little devotionals memorized, and it was just that significance of family worship and family preparation and family recognizing that as a family we serve the Lord Jesus and we worship Him, and so we want to know Him and we want to worship Him together. And prepare our hearts for Him. That as we prepare to worship Him each Sunday, and that we're doing that together. And so it was always sort of I want to get around to doing something like that for my own kids, writing these things and doing that for my own family.
Well, from a very practical perspective, the effect that you're talking about. I think a lot of parents, me included, we often feel this burden to, we need to be doing our own things. I am going to be leading this family worship or this devotion. Yeah. But it's so good to have helps.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so, you wrote this for a very practical purpose.
Right. And I'm curious, why didn't you just recommend a different devotional? I want to be like, hey, everybody, I really love this one. Why?
Because I wanted
that
to
gets to the nut of it.
What kind of things did you add?
Yeah, there were things.
What did you really love about what you did?
There were things I definitely wanted to. I talk about stars in it, that, and I hadn't heard that in many Christmas books or I just wanted to take some of the observations I've had of the nativity, the Christmas texts in Scripture and the themes of the story of Christ's coming that I wanted to bring out and draw out, and And this time of year, you have a certain stripe of Christians that get very grumpy about all the materialism, you know?
Yes.
And I saw that as a real error amongst very sort of pseudo-pious Christians wanting to feel very holier than thou, that we're going to celebrate the incarnation by thinking godly thoughts.
Right.
You know,
That's like a lot of people approach the Sabbath that same way as well. Right. But you kind of hit at that several times during the book. But towards the end, there's a chapter where you really just wail into that. Which I want to get to that a little later.
Okay.
But so you've divided this basically into weeks.
Yeah.
The first week, it's all about the senses.
Right.
One could even say it's very sensual. Right?
One could say that.
One should not
One
say
could
that.
say anything.
So,
Given our present distress.
so the titles are things like, and I had them memorized before. Here we go. Christmas ears, Christmas eyes, Christmas mouths, etc. And then, so you've got that going on.
Where's the knees and toes?
That's right. But I went with the senses, the sensual. You know.
You close that week with the holly jolly puritanical Christmas.
Right.
So maybe talk about the whole week. Why did you structure it that way?
Well, we're talking about the incarnation. The story of Christmas is God became a man. God put on flesh and dwelt among us, and came to redeem the world. Came to redeem the earth. Creation groans for the resurrection. And all too often, we make our spiritual exercises very esoteric and floaty. And the story of Christmas is not that God came down in a ball of light, an orb of spiritual luminescence. You know, the story is that Christ, or the second person of the Trinity, became a man, and had fingers and ears and taste buds and so. But what's as Protestants, it can oftentimes be leveled at us that our Protestant heritage is dour and stuffy, and the Puritans especially were these fussy, have no fun. I think it was H.L. Mencken that said that defined Puritanism as the idea that somewhere out there someone's having fun. And that's just not at all the case of who the Puritans were. They loved. They dressed brightly. They dressed in
they wore earrings.
Wasn't all black and white garb.
One of my favorite stories, Jonathan Edwards wouldn't necessarily be a Puritan, but kind of on the tail end of the Puritan movement. And one of the biggest controversies of his ministry was that he had a baby, or his wife had a baby on a Sunday. Did you know this?
No.
This is one of the biggest. His wife had a baby on a Sunday, which
Madam,
they
please
thought
don't.
meant that it had been conceived on a Sunday, which is something that should not be done on a Sunday.
Interesting.
And so here's Jonathan Edwards having a great Sabbath nap, as it were.
Wow.
Yeah.
So well phrased to do. I admire that.
They love.
That's how you be sensual.
They love their feasts.
baby
They
on a
love
nap.
their wives. They loved having babies. And and so I want to point out that godly Protestantism is not at odds with fudge and wrapping every conceivable food around us in bacon and
Bacon fudge.
and kissing under the mistletoe, you know, all that, all the
dance battles,
that sort of thing.
You better start that as a Christmas tradition.
No,
next year we can
Ben
visit
told
that.
us to.
That's
At
right.
the end of week one, he said dance battle.
That's right.
So that kind of encapsulated a lot of what week one and week two discuss. Then we get into week three, and then you really bring out Ark and some of those themes that we were talking about towards the beginning. My wife and I read yesterday's devotional together, and we really liked your take on Bethlehem, the city of bread, right? Tell us more about the things you enjoyed discovering and writing about in week three as it pertains to the whole narrative.
Yeah. Well, I mean, the Bethlehem being the house of bread is just a striking image that this town of David, who was God promised David that you would have a son he would not fail to have a son sitting on the throne, and his hometown is Bethlehem, and here we have the bread of life arriving on the scene, who's the son of David, the rightful king, all that stuff. But he comes to feed us. He comes to commune with us, to be a feast for us. And then that gets into very practical. Our weekly, 52 weeks out of the year, celebration of the Lord's Supper. That it's not disconnected then from what we observe and memorialize each Lord's Day in the Lord's Supper. And then there's just the aspects of those big picture things that this time of year can become very sentimental. The precious moments version of the Christmas story, rather than what we were touching on earlier, which is this is Beowulf going to slay the dragon. This is why the Lord of the Rings is Fellowship of the Ring is a Christmas movie. Or is a Christmas story.
Wait a second. Are you going to tell us that we have to marathon the Lord of the Rings?
No, just
some people watch Die Hard every year.
No, you need to watch Fellowship of the Rings on Christmas, and then you can figure out the Two Towers between then. But then you need to watch the Return of the King on Easter.
Oh wow!
So
that makes sense. Resurrection.
Frodo sets out from Rivendell on December 25th.
Does he?
Yes. And they lay upon him this charge. The Council of Elrond lays upon him this charge to carry this burden. Carry this burden to destroy it.
Yeah.
Take the enemy's ring and go destroy it.
Really?
And then, you know what day it's destroyed? March 25th, which is in Roman Catholic tradition, the day that Christ died.
Wow.
Really, this is an episode about Ben justifying why he can quote Narnia and Lord of the Rings till he's blue in the face.
That's right. So anyway, it's that. It's not precious moments. It's not the sweet story of how innocent babies are. You know, that's not the child in the manger. Isn't this sweet? Yeah, this isn't this sweet story. It's about God unsheathing His sword.
Yeah. Wow. Now,
to destroy His enemies.
What do you think about Christmas hymns? That talk about the tenderness of Jesus, and like a little town of Bethlehem,
baby.
Right?
Like tender and mild.
Yeah, I mean, all babies are cute,
right? No, to their mother at least. You know?
Yeah, a lot of babies look like
we should ask Mary in the resurrection.
Or like old
cute.
He had no form or comeliness that we should desire him.
Yeah, like was he an ugly baby?
Did he look like an old man? Let's be honest.
Did he look like a
grumpy Winston Churchill?
That's right.
Wow.
That's right.
But anyways, we have scenes like that.
Yeah.
Can we do that lawfully?
Yeah.
And rightly be like, tenderness of the Christ.
Yeah, I mean, it's obvious that the holiest became the humblest.
Yeah.
He became that little child, little baby, vulnerable, dependent.
And that's
all
a
those
necessary
things,
part of the story.
That's because that's what we all were at one point.
Right.
Even Joffrey, he was once
Joffrey's
he was a little baby. He was like a little baby.
I was only 4 feet tall at that point.
He was a child the size of a teenager.
I actually was. My mother tells a story of a nurse getting kind of freaked out because someone had put a 3-month-old in the newborn ward. Like, no.
My goodness.
I can see it. But that's
very manifest.
So if he did take on, everything that he took on was to redeem it, and which means that he came, he had to be fully man. And that's what we confess. That's what Scripture teaches is that, and so that thought of the Creator of the world being this little baby at its mother's breast is a profound and it is a tender picture.
Yes, right.
Because he became one of us. That was where that's what we've all. He became a man.
Yeah, but it just doesn't end there. And I think that's the point.
And that's not the point of the story, is to get us to feel warm fuzzies.
No.
And to
but it
have
is
a Hallmark
that it
movie
begins
moment
there.
Yeah.
And I think one of the cool things about Christmas and Mary's story is how it places women in the story of God unsheathing his sword to kill, to destroy his enemies.
Right.
Is that
women in battle?
Women, well, women are human. Once again, we bring this up.
love
It's a
women.
recurring theme in our podcast.
Do you have to go over that weekly? Or like,
Yeah, I think somehow we dig those. I don't think we dug ourselves in a patriarchal, at least not a bad patriarchal hole. But we just like to emphasize women. We love women.
That's right.
I'm married to one.
You made it weird, Sean.
No,
I feel like that was
you're the
not
one
me
who
this
tossed
time.
the softball at me underhanded. How can I not crank that thing over the fence?
But that is something where it's so important for us. Like, we as individuals, we see baby Jesus, and we see we are fragile, we are weak, and Christ's incarnation validates us as humans. The Christ's birth, and in Mary's story, and John greeting him in the womb, all of this does a lot to validate family. Like, there is a family of God, and and God's family is Joseph and Mary, and that's absolutely mind-blowing. But that ought to remind us, so we have this constant reminder of what a big deal we are in Jesus. But in the story of Jesus' birth is a reminder of what a big deal our families are, and what a queen, like Roman Catholics call Mary the Queen of the Universe. Like, what is happening? But what queens our wives are. Really. That's all I was trying to say, Shawnee.
But that's why you have genealogies in the beginning of Matthew and Luke. Is you have it's a story that goes way back. It doesn't just pop up. This is a new chapter. This is a new chapter in the fables. It's connected to what went before.
Oh my goodness! Wow.
Because you have, again, the rightful lineage of he has both priestly relatives and kingly relatives, so that he's the rightful king priest of Israel. He's the one who could rule Israel, and that's God's family. That's God's promise to Abraham. That's God's promise to Eve. So when God in Eden pronounces the judgment on Adam and Eve, the first thing said to mankind is to Eve about her womb. And when the angel Gabriel comes to Mary in the Annunciation, is you will bear a son. That womb that was cursed is now going to be the womb that bears the salvation.
Amen. Your final chapter, the one to be read on Christmas Day, is titled Christmas All Year Round. And it seems like your big charge at the end. Can you tell us more about that final charge for Christmas?
Well, it's to remember that all that we've been saying here is that Jesus Christ is King, and that means He's King of your life, which means you need to bend your knee and submit to His lordship, submit to His commands, obey Him, trust Him. It means your family needs to do that. It means that your town needs to do that. It means all the nations need to submit to this King who came and conquered this world, redeemed it for His own, and to be a jovial people, to be a people who know that they have a good King. He's not a tame lion, but he's good. That's right, and He's the King of Kings, and that's what we celebrate year round.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
So, 2 weeks ago, we had a live show, and we had some people just coming, just people who were here enjoying a party, came on, and they were just talking about some of their traditions. And a couple of times, the idea of spending a lot on gifts came up. And being lavish. But one of the people, so when Aaron came on, he did talk about how he knew for a fact that his family had gone overboard. And had thought so much about what Christmas ought to be that they had spent too much. So you have a chapter called "Break the Bank," like the wise men, and we already kind of hinted. We talked a little bit about generosity and lavishness, and of course, right at the beginning of the chapter, you say to be wise, right? You've got the caveats.
That's right.
So a quote from that chapter: "God has given unto us, and we ought to imitate Him in our giving," which means the giving which means giving the sort of gifts which cannot be repaid. And then I loved this. Leave the receiver aghast in shocked joy. Give with such gusto that the grace shown to us at the first Christmas is echoed in our gift giving. We didn't deserve the salvation which God sent to us in his Son, but he gave it out of sheer grace and goodness, so go and do likewise.
Right.
Awesome. So, I mean, that right there might sum it up, but unpack that a little more.
Well, I mean, I think it's the easiest thing to say. We need to imitate God in our generosity, so let's pinch our pennies. And it's just the
make sure we don't lose anything here.
Even the temptation, I think, for parents when kids are misbehaving during the month of December, like if you don't watch up, I'm going to take your presents.
Right.
You know, which is then you're doing it wrong. You're not preaching the gospel in your gift giving.
It's unmerited.
It's unmerited. It's you don't deserve it. You were being a rascal the other day, you know. And yet, because of the great love that's been shown to us, we show that love, and it needs to be tangible. It's not. I'm thinking very generous thoughts.
Yeah, earlier in the show, I think you used the words esoteric and floaty.
Yes.
Right. And so we don't want to be that. We want to incarnate our generosity, our reflection. You also use the word imitative in this chapter. It's like let's imitative giving. Like we create because God created. We give because God gave.
Yeah, and this is the body He gave us to do it with. This is the creation. You can't make. We can't create ex nihilo.
So wait a second. Are you telling me that I shouldn't be giving good vibes to my kids at Christmas?
Well, of course you should. You should be a joyful person. You shouldn't be grumpy and grumbling all on the inside. And of course you need to be giving yourself. But that's it's not an excuse to say, well, I'm very generous. I love my children. They mean the world to me. But no moss on the Nerf guns.
Okay.
You know.
Wow, I'm not going to dare to ask you your theology of batteries and toys.
Well, the problem is too many toys like play with themselves. You know, it's like the toys like you push the button and they play. The kid doesn't play with them. So
now you have inspiration to go do that last minute Christmas shopping that you probably can't do because the stores aren't even there. Anyways,
spend extra on that shipping.
That's right. Hey, we're so grateful that Ben wrote this devotional. You can find it at his website, benzornes.com.
That's right.
You can also find it on Amazon. It's a nice, good little feeling paperback. His PDF versions are ridiculously cheap. He's being very generous.
That's the idea.
With his labor.
Go and do likewise. Right?
Yeah,
that's right. Go and also write.
Here's my Christmas book, 1995 plus shipping and handling. You know?
That's actually not the price even of the hard copy.
So you can get this for a nice cup of Starbucks coffee. Maybe like a venti. What's the big size at Starbucks?
Venti.
Depends on how many pumps of sugar you put.
Yeah, that's right.
A few extra pumps of sugar at the Venti. You can get that for Ben's book. Ben, thank you so much for
Absolutely.
joining
Thanks for having
us.
me on.
And we hope you guys all have a Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
We're going to say it all together. 1, 2, 3.
Merry Christmas.